Nightjohn by Gary Paulson continued. We left off with Mammy being placed in the shackles on the spring house wall. John, I thought, John will stop him. She shook her head. He can't. No matter what he says, it won't stop Waller from whipping me. You go along and bring me some water when they ain't watching. You know he won't whip me until close on dark, when everybody's back from the fields to watch. The sun's hot now. I'll be getting a big thirst. Well, don't I get some water? I snuck Mammy water throughout the afternoon, and she hung there. The way the chains in her bracelets were, she couldn't reach to sit down, so she had to stand. But standing through the day that way, without moving, was hard. After it passed some long time, her legs didn't do so good. She started to sag. Come late in the day, she was mostly hanging on the chains. Her arms were up, and she was having to hurt. And I stood and watched for a spell. Cried some, but she stopped me. You take care of them young'uns. Go now, they be dirty and stinking. You don't change the rags on them. Run along, I'll be okay. Took forever, waiting on the day. Mamie hanging that way. And I thought once of running to the fields to tell John. Wouldn't do no good, though. Drivers working the fields see me coming, just put me to work. They say if you can walk to the fields, you can work. So I'd be working and not here. And John couldn't do anything anyway. They just keep him there no matter what I say. So nothing. Waller, he kept his white maggot-owned self in the White House all that day. Don't come out once to see me standing by Mammy. The sun worked across the sky, cooking her. I brought her water again and a piece of cornbread that I'd been saving since the morning food, but she shook her head. I'll just throw it up when it comes to whipping me. You go now and get the rags ready for my back and the salt. I can't. Yes, you can. I'll go do it now. Now, finally, it came on to be dark, and the hands came in from the field. Part of the afternoon, I had the young'uns help me make a trough of cold food so there'd be enough to eat. They had to walk past the spring house, and they saw Mammy. There wasn't much they could do. I went up to John and told him what had happened. Damn, he shook his head. I should have warned you about making them words. And I knew. I was just excited to be making my first word. I got to writing in the dirt, and he caught me. Waller, he caught me. And now he's going to whip her, Mammy. He's going to whip her into rags. And John didn't say anything. He looked to where Mammy hung on them spring house wall chains, and his eyes were flat. And he muttered, bastard. I was going to say more. Say, can you stop him? Can you say something? But I heard the door of the White House open, and Waller came out. He made gas and spit like he just ate a big meal and walked across the yard and stopped. Oh, you get out here and watch. He bellered like an old bull. And he turned. But he didn't go to the spring house. And he didn't have a whip. Instead, he went into the barn, went inside. Came out in a breath or two, but he wasn't... Came out in a breath or two, and he was carrying a horse harness. He went to the buggy by the carriage shed and hooked the harness like he had a horse in it, except it's empty. Then he walked back to the spring house and he looked at Mammy. You're going to tell me he was teaching them to read. Now, Mammy had been hanging, but she stood now and gave him that big-eyed look again. I don't know nothing about reading or writing. God damn you, and he hit her with his fist. Then he unhooked her from the chains, ripped her clothes off her body, and dragged her nakedness to the harness. Put it on. Feel like a ride in a buggy. Oh, Mammy put the collar around her neck with the lines going back to the buggy. Stood there, looking up at the sky. I couldn't keep my eyes down, but the men did. They didn't look at her. They all stared at the ground. Waller climbed into the buggy and sat in the seat. He reached under the footboard and came up with a whip. Pull, damn you! And that whip snaked out from the buggy seat like it was alive. Flicked. Blood came on Mammy's shoulders. Big cut. She started pulling, but it wasn't good enough. She strained and heaved, and the wagon, it moved. And Waller kept yelling, faster, damn you, faster! And the whip came again and again, and the blood was pouring down her back. The buggy moved across the yard, and I heard in back of me say, she don't know nothing. It was me that taught the girl those letters. I turned, and John was standing there. He stepped forward, and he pointed to Mammy. Let her be. She don't know nothing about it. It was all me. Well, Waller looked at him the way a cat looked at a mouse caught in the corner, and he smiled that ugly smile. Well, 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 I might have guessed. He stepped down from the buggy and he moved to John. Why don't you just go on over there and put yourself in them irons on that spring house wall, boy? And I thought John wasn't going to do it. He held for 1, 2 blinks of an eye. And Waller had the whip in his left hand coiled and ready. His right hand was on the butt of that big pistol in his belt. 2 blinks, then John moved. He walked to the spring house and put the bracelets on. He wasn't wearing a shirt. And when he turned his back to the sun, it caught the scars from all those old whippings, rippled and ridged. There's nowhere for a whip to hit, I thought. It couldn't hit anything new. No new meat. Stupid. You know the way I was thinking. But Waller, he wasn't set for no whipping. He made one of the field hands go fetch a stump used for chopping off the heads of chickens. He sent another hand to the blacksmith lean-to for a wide chisel and a hammer. Then he turned to us, all standing and watching, and I moved to Mammy, but she shook me off. And I stood. It's wrong to learn to read. Waller's voice was loud and bouncing off the walls, pushing. It's against the law for you to read, to know letters. To know any counting is wrong. Punishment, according to the law, is the removal of an extremity. We didn't know all them words. Never heard extremity before. But we didn't need to know either. Waller, he had 2 field hands hold one of John's feet on the block, and he put that chisel to the middle toe and swung that hammer. And that toe came clean off. Jumped away from that chisel, fell in the dirt. Blood squirted out all over the block. Johnny jerked the foot so hard it knocked one of the field hands over. But quiet. Not even a grunt out of him. He didn't look down either. Just kept staring off in the fields next to the spring house. Other foot! Waller spit and wiped the chisel off on the stump. The 2 field hands grabbed John's left leg. The one next to the wall of the spring house, his name was Rob. He took it slow. He didn't move fast, so you could see it was bothering him. While it snapped like a breaking stick. Can be your toe too, son. Doesn't cost any more to cut off another. So Robbie put John's foot up there, and Waller put that chisel to it. This time, toe was not so clean. The foot jerked back, and the toe got caught on some skin, and the chisel is a mist. Hold it up there, damn it! And they held the foot on the block. John still not making any sound. His face was stiff like it was carved out of rock. There was sweat pouring off his forehead and his neck and down his chest. He was soaked. Waller cut that last bit of skin off. There! That'll teach you to mess with things you shouldn't. Get a rag and grease on that. And he walked back to the White House. Without looking back, and as soon as he was away, we went to helping. 2 hands carried John between them to the quarters, and I went to Mammy. Fetch the salt, she said. Get it in these cuts before I pass out. And for God's sake, cover me with something so I ain't naked before the Lord. And so I did. And she swooned some with pain and went down. And I frotched her dress and helped her put it on. And helped her back to the quarters because her legs didn't work right from hanging and standing all that day. You know, and all that time I'm thinking, be a good hell with fire and brimstone, devils cutting skins off backs like Mammy says. Be a good goddamn hell with demons eating at you, pulling your guts out. Be the worst hell there be, and that's where you put Waller.